And with me here today, I have 4 esteemed guests, experienced professionals in their line of work, and they'll be introducing themselves shortly. And if you are new here and you're wondering what the brand Risevest is, briefly, I'm just going to do a brief introduction and then we kickstart this. So Rise is a digital wealth manager that connects Nigerians to foreign investment opportunities, which is like global investment. So we have different asset classes from fixed income, US real estate, Naira vault, US stocks. And we also have a community on Telegram, which is this, where we share strategies on how you can do better at your finances. We discuss market insights, market news, and yeah, we always encourage everyone to share their view. So let's kickstart this topic right away. First of all, I'd like to hear from my guests. So let me so yeah. So hi, okay, they are here already. I think you can allow to speak. Allow to speak. So I'm going to, so you can just request to speak and then I just grant you access. There's a middle icon. There's an icon in the middle, with an human figure. You just need to click on it and then you be granted permission to speak. But I've granted you permission to speak, Anointing. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Anointing. Just briefly, do you mind introducing yourself to our community for those of us meeting you for the first time? Who is Anointing?
Oh, okay. So my name is Oluwatobi Anointing. I'm the founder of Tobicloset, a fashion-forward clothing brand that produces made in Nigeria essential pieces. Yes, so I am a young adult that is just trying to make ends meet and make the most out of life. Yeah. So I think that's it about me.
Thank you so much, Anointing, and also for taking the time to be here with us this evening. Um, Next, Seunfunmi. Seunfunmi, I granted you access to speak. You can go for it now. So, hi, Seunfunmi, how are you doing today? And yeah, just a brief introduction of yourself to our community so they can get familiar with you. You have the room to speak. I granted you access already. You just need to
Okay.
unmute.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hi, Victor. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome.
Okay,
So I
so
was
my
asked.
name is. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Seunfunmi Adeyemi, and I'm the founder of Wawo Hub, where we sell quality and affordable packaging materials as well as content creation tools.
All right, Sean me. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you here also.
Same here.
Um, Zumah. Okay, yeah, Zumah. You can go for it.
Good
So,
evening,
hi, Zumah. How are you
everyone.
doing? Good evening.
Hi, Victor. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing too?
I'm doing all right. Thank you.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zumah Yahaya. I am the founder of Bookkeeping Africa and the director of programs at the Ilorin Innovation Hub. Bookkeeping Africa is a growth strategy and management consulting firm where we provide end-to-end support for new and emerging businesses. The Ilorin Innovation Hub is a partnership between the Kwara State Government and IHS Towers, which is designed to provide inspiring spaces, impactful programs, and develop a vibrant ecosystem within Kwara and its environs.
Thank you so much, Zumah, and nice to have you with us this evening. So lastly, David, before we kickstart this.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's great
Good
to
evening,
be
David.
here in this investment community. My name is David Apaflo. I'm the founder and managing director of Shelze Professional Services. I'm a chartered accountant, and for the last 20 years, I've pretty much been involved in advising companies on their tax matters. We also serve as tax consultants to Risevest as an entity, and glad to be here in this webinar to contribute my little quota to helping businesses know exactly what they need to know to be prepared for the new tax regime coming to us in January. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you for taking the time to be here. Nice to have you too. So now we can kickstart this webinar. So this is going to last for an hour. I'm going to be asking our guests here some questions, and then they'll be answering, and for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we open the line for contributions, questions, in case you have any. So please make sure just in case you have questions and you don't forget them, you can jot them down somewhere, or you have contribution, you can put it down somewhere, put it on the chat. When we are done with the conversation, we go through it. So again, the topic for this evening is SMEs, bookkeeping, and the impacts of the Tax Act. And we all know how bookkeeping is very, very important to the growth of a business. And according to the SMEDAN 2022 report, 80% of Nigerian MSMEs have no formal accounting or financial records. And we all know if there are no financial records, it means there's no like cash flow, there's no P&L statement, there's no data. And when there's no data, there's no clarity. And without clarity, you cannot scale, you cannot grow. In fact, there's a fact that over 60% of Nigerian SMEs fail within their first 3 years. And among the cause of those failures is always due to, or sometimes due to, lack of financial reporting. So this is a very, very important topic, and I'd really appreciate if we listen attentively, and then there'll be a lot to gain from this session. So let me start with you, Zumah. So you lead. So in your introduction, you mentioned you've been doing this for 18 years across tech, banking, and the development sectors. So my first question to you would be, how do you think early stage businesses can position themselves for long-term financial sustainability?
Hi, once again, Victor, and thank you for that question. Yes, I've been in this industry for more than 18 years. How can early stage businesses position themselves for long-term financial sustainability? For me, the first thing you need to look at is the foundation, which is your product. You cannot, irrespective, you can't have when you have a bad product, you cannot be financially sustainable long-term. You may be able to convince people to buy your product for the first time, but if it's not a good product, they are not going to come back. And if they don't come back, you are not going to be financially sustainable long-term. So the foundation borders on the product and your customer management. So even if you have a great product and your customer management is poor, you're still not going to be financially sustainable, because the cost of retaining one customer is significantly cheaper than the cost of acquiring a new customer. So, but when you have great customer management, they will become your ambassadors. You will sell more, you will make more. So that's the first thing you need to focus on if you're trying to build long-term financial sustainability: your foundation, your product, and your customer service. The next thing you need to look at is your cost management. You need to keep your eyes on your expenses. What are we making? Where is it going to? What are our fixed costs? What are our variable costs? How much are we making? How do we consistently reduce costs without dropping the ball on quality? And then you cannot manage your cost without keeping proper records. What records are we keeping? What are the important information to us? When do we get paid? Is there a way to do more while spending less? Is there a way we can leverage on suppliers' credit? So when you have when you have adequate eyes on your costs and you're able to effectively manage them, you are more likely to be financially sustainable long term. Another way to be financially sustainable long term is revenue diversification. If you have a business and you have just one source of revenue, your chances of being financially sustainable long term is very low, because a simple change in market trends or a simple change in policy can literally close that revenue stream. So it's important, if you're aiming for long-term sustainability, to ensure that you have multiple revenue streams, or you develop multiple revenue streams over time in the business. And the last bit that you also need to focus on, fine, you've laid the right foundation, you have a great product, you manage your customers efficiently, they love you, they are your ambassadors, they tell other people about you, you have your eyes on your costs, you're making decent profits, you have different revenue sources, but then you are not reinvesting your profits. Every time you are taking the money out, to live the good life, you are not going to be financially sustainable. So you have to be intentional about reinvesting your profits. If you don't want to reinvest everything, you can have, say, a certain percentage of the profits needs to go back into the business to ensure long-term financial sustainability. So yes, how can you as an early stage business position for long-term financial sustainability? Have a great product, manage your customers efficiently, keep your eyes on your costs, keep adequate records so that you can have at a glance what it is. You can see at a glance the position of your business, have multiple revenue sources, and most importantly, reinvest your profits. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Zuma. That was very, very detailed. And there's also, you mentioned a lot of action points people can take into that. So Seunfunmi, I think I would go to you next. So I know your product is you sell branding packages. You sell packages people can use for branding. It means you've worked with a number of small businesses. So with your business, with your experience with these businesses, can you tell us like the story behind why you started it and how your own experience with business finance has influenced that journey so far?
Hi, Victor. Thank you once again. So, yes, I work with a lot of SMEs because I sell what about 95% of SMEs need to brand their products for sales. So, and yes, I have quite a lot of experiences with them. And what actually, the story behind that was that I started this business from a place of passion and personal struggle. So I started off as a props vendor, I mean photo props. So while at it, I started getting, comments, or let me say inquiries from some of my customers back then that, okay, I get that you sell this product for us to be able to take crisp pictures of our product rather than just pick up, internet pictures that would begin to confuse our customers if the item was real or not. But then after we make sales of this product, we don't really have, a good packaging material to ship out this product. So when I started getting those inquiries, I was like, okay, it's not going to be a bad idea if I infuse my packaging material, some packaging materials into my already booming business. So that was how I started selling the packaging materials. And the turnout was really massive. And yeah, at some point I faced my own financial challenges. Like I started mixing my personal funds, my business funds, and I'm like, what's going on? Because I started seeing some loss here and there. I couldn't even determine what exactly my profits was. Yes, I was making sales, but I couldn't differentiate between my personal funds and my profits as well. So obviously there was no clear system for tracking my income and expenses, and that really cost me a lot. So that experience actually influenced how I started thinking of how to structure Wawo Hub properly. So I started engaging myself in financial discipline. I started doing a lot of documentations. I figured out a clear pricing structure as well. And this made me realize that I was not the only one experiencing all of this. So I wanted other entrepreneurs to also learn from my mistakes. So aside selling these packaging materials to small business owners, I also try my best to educate them on the business of business and not just how to package their products for sales. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Seunfunmi, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. Um, Thank you for sharing your experience with us also.
Welcome.
Um, yeah, Anointing, over to you. So I know you started Tobicloset while you were in the university, and you managed to grow it into like a major brand. So my question to you would be, what systems helped you keep your books organized early on, and what would you do differently looking back?
Okay, thank you so much, Victor. So first off, I would like to say that starting my business in uni meant that I wasn't really I didn't really want to do a business. It was just like vibes. I just didn't want to be idle. And then I just found myself in that position and I loved it. And so I didn't have basic knowledge of what business you feel like. My own is, oh, you have sold today. Okay, you can order food, you will eat the food, and everybody will be all right. So far, I was making money, and then I did not even know that maybe it was detrimental to the business. So there was nothing. But I think around, like, let me say 3 months later, people around me saw that I was becoming serious, and then my mom had asked me that, oh, how much have I made so far? And I was blank, like, what do you mean, how much have I made so far? I've just been surviving. I'm not calling you people for money. That should count. And then based off, my dad is a marketer, and my mom is actually a serious entrepreneur. She sat me down and was like, it's not done that way. But our own thought was, you know what, just get a book and paper. For every time you go to the market, note down what you buy from the market, note down how much you spent to get to the market, even down to the water that you drink, because it is from this same business. That way you are going to know how much you are going to like cost it. It sort of made sense to me, and I started like writing. I have several journals that I cannot throw away because I look back at them and then I'm just smiling because it shows growth. I write literally everything. I write my day at the market and everything. So I think I documented that journey, and financially the structure I built and how I kept my book were just like journaling. But now I would say that I have grown differently. As at 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I kind of knew that I did not just want to be selling stuff. I wanted a brand. I wanted something that would stand out, which means I have to like rebuild from ground up. Every business is essential that it is properly structured. And when I mean properly structured, you have to know that self-discipline, like Wawu said, there are a lot of things that goes on behind the scene, and I just knew that I have to put in the work. And then what I do differently now is that I tend to like work with people. I'm always open to learning. So by the time I made that decision, I had to have conversation with people. I had friends that were in the accounting field. I had conversations with them. I had a friend that was a financial analyst, and he was kind enough to like walk me through it, baby steps, and it kind of like got better. And eventually, I think one of the things that has also helped me scale, and one of the things that I would say I have done differently, was switching to using a website. Like, it may not make sense, but it actually like helped me because I use one that is actually built all around to like fit in everything that I need. As at last year, December, I started using a website last year. As at last year, December, I saw my business analytic. I saw what I had done months in different months from May till December. And it just did not make sense that my business had that kind of money. I saw the profit I had made. I saw I saw everything basically, and then the old blues that come with, oh, the year is ending. Did you really do well for yourself? It just shifted because I knew that I had done amazingly well, and that is just because I knew my numbers. Now I had a conversation with an amazing founder also who actually walked me through the process of knowing your numbers as a business owners. As a business owner, you just have to know your number at the back of your head. Oh, what is the cost of this thing? If you do this thing, would your business suffer? So now I actually use I'm always drafting Excel sheets. I work with an accountant, and also my website also help me to put me in check. But for beginners that maybe do not have access to these things, or maybe funding to, like, maybe say I want to hire an accountant or any of these things, it is still important that you know your number. Don't think that anything can be trivialized. The littlest details count when it comes to business. The thing that you think doesn't matter actually does matter. So if it's a paper, if it's on your phone, anything and anyway, just ensure that you are noting down every progress, every loss, every detail. So I think that's it.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. I also like the fact that you mentioned like how you started, the challenges, the how you were able to structure from university to now, and comparing both of the experiences. So I think that's very, very insightful for people listening. And also um David, I'd go over to you now. So yeah, our you're experts here in tax. So this is suited for you. So a lot of business owners feel overwhelmed when they hear like bookkeeping, or when there's a mention of like tax or bookkeeping. So from your experience as a tax consultant, what's a simple approach that simple business owners can adopt to stay compliant?
Okay, thank you very much. So I think the first thing I'd like to say is that business is the business of business, right? And numbers is the language with which we use to transact business. So if you're a business person that is overwhelmed by numbers, it's sort of like a doctor overwhelmed by blood. So we need to, look at that mindset and start to feel comfortable with the numbers, because the numbers is how essentially we know whether we're doing well or not. But with respect to making things simple, still on mindset, we need to consider that the faintest pen is better than the sharpest memory. I've already heard some of the other panelists on this webinar talk about how they had a book to record, collating information. So when we look at the accounting process or the bookkeeping process, it starts with recording. So if nothing is recorded in the first instance, there's absolutely nothing to classify, there's nothing to analyze, there's nothing to report on. So we need to, imbibe that sort of discipline in, recording our transactions. Now, how do we also build systems that make it easy for us to follow through with these disciplines? The first thing I'll say is, as one of the panelists also mentioned, try and separate your personal activities from your business activities. To have a designated bank account where you know that everything that goes in and comes out from these accounts is dedicated to my business. So ideally, a business account that is solely used for the purpose of that business, right? And then what you now need to do is that for every amount that you are spending, put in the remarks where you have space for comments. Just start by putting what the transaction is about. So the beauty about that is that in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, once you generate your bank statement, you can see exactly what you were paying money for, right? That really helps. Another thing you need to do is to now also save the documents related to those transfers. So if I'm paying for electricity, save the electrical bill that you are paying for. If you're paying for salary, save the details of how much you are paying, who you are paying. If you're paying for transportation, save the receipts, because at some point when you have investors or the government needs to look into your books, you'll be asking you for evidence of these expenses. So it's important for us to, start with that mindset of knowing that we must be comfortable with numbers as business people. The faintest pen is better than the sharpest memory, so we always need to write things down. We need to separate our personal transactions from our business transactions. Put remarks when you're doing your transfers, and save what we call the source documents relating to those transactions that you're making payments for. And then you can also, these days, we have a lot of apps that make things simple. So you can connect some apps, some rely on open banking, pull in your banking statement fees automatically. Some allow you to upload your bank statements and do classification. But at the heart of all this is discipline. You must be disciplined enough to periodically recognize the fact that you need to, put down all the details of your transactions so that you can classify them, analyze and see exactly how well you're doing, what needs to be improved, what needs to be changed, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, David, for that. That was very, very insightful. I like the way you broke down each steps into details, and it's very, very important we all have that mindset of recording just on the early stage because, like you said, the faintest pen is always better than the sharpest memory. So, which leads us to the next question. I think this is very, very important, specifically for the topic SMEs bookkeeping and the impact of tax act. So Zumah, I know you are the program director of Ilorin Innovation Hub. So that essentially means like you lead programs supporting innovation and startups. What role do you think financial literacy and record keeping play in helping these businesses secure grants or funding?
Thank you, Victor. I would like to start by saying I like the fact that the way Toby's parents introduced her to bookkeeping and educated her on financial literacy. Like it was simple, it was direct. Before I go to my question, and it was quite impactful based on what she shared. How important are bookkeeping and financial literacy in securing funding for startups? Let's start by understanding what bookkeeping is, so it will not come across as a fancy word. It is simply the act of documenting all financial transactions in an organization. So like Toby said, she started as using a journal. It doesn't have to be something fancy, it just means you just need to write it down. Bookkeeping is the only way you can show your business viability. Like what David said, like it is what gives you at a glance. What shows you at a glance the health of your business. It shows your business viability, it shows your trustworthiness and capacity for growth. And these are the things that potential funders and grant organizations look at. You cannot be asking someone to give you money. The first thing they will ask you for is, okay, what have you done before? How much were you making? How much did you make last year? How much did you make 2 years ago? So if they have such information, they'll be able to project that, oh, if you're able to make 10,000 last year, you made 15,000 today. That means you're growing at a 50% year-on-year rate, right? But if you're unable to provide this information, they will not be able to ascertain the health of your business and also decide if they want to give you money or not. A record that shows how you have grown over the years, where your money is going into, where it is coming from, because there are some funders that they will tell you that if you cannot explain the source of your income, they will not fund you. If you cannot explain the people who have funded you before, they will not fund you. So it's, and also when they are valuing your business, if you don't have adequate records, they will not be able to value your business appropriately to determine the amount of equity or the equity they will be taking from your business, even if they are investing. So as a business owner, if you are looking at seeking any form of external funding, be it debt or equity funding, it is important. The first thing you need to get right is to ensure that you have your books in order. You need to know how much you're making. You need to know how much you're spending. You need to know what is going on operational expenses. You need to know how much profits, what actually constitutes profit, and how the profit is growing over time. These are the things that will let the funders know if you are worth investing in or not. So moving on to financial literacy. As a founder, you cannot afford to be financially illiterate. But financial literacy is simply the ability to understand and effectively manage financial matters. The most important thing in financial literacy is understanding. So let's even say you are not good with numbers, you outsource your finances to a professional to do it for you. But if you're not financially literate, you will not be able to understand what it is they have done for you. You wouldn't be able to say they have done it well or not. And you'll not be able to effectively communicate to founders your financial situation. Because even if you're sending them financial projection, they will still expect you to talk through it. If you don't understand it, there is no way you will be able to talk through it. So you can't keep books without being financially literate. And you cannot communicate your finances if you're not financially literate. And even if you do engage someone to keep the books, you cannot interpret it, not to talk of effectively communicate it to potential funders or donor organizations. You also can't budget or do financial planning if you're not financially literate. So financial planning and bookkeeping is an essential part of being a founder, particularly if you are looking to raise any form of external funding. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Zuma. I think it's also just to retreat on what you said. It's very, very important if you are a business owner or founder that you cannot afford to be financially illiterate. It's important to the structure of your business. Is important to how you scale. You have to have your books in order. You have to know how much is coming in, how much you are spending, how much you are saving, and you just have to be financially literate. Seunfunmi, over to you. In your experience supporting brands with packaging and branding, how important is financial structure like bookkeeping to a business ability to grow and attract investment? How important is it?
My brother, it's everything. Oh, it's very, 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 very important. Like, you can have the most beautiful brand, the most beautiful products. You can have great packaging, great customer service, and all of that. But without having a proper structure for your business, especially this financial structure that we are talking about, then it can be a reason to limit your growth in your business. Do you get? And personally, I've seen some of my friends, even close relative, lose out on business opportunities like grants and even partnerships. For somebody like me, while I started, I had some of my friend wanting to, invest in my business. And they were like, okay, can you roughly tell us like how much cost of goods you buy on a monthly, how much the profit is like, questions like that. And in my head, I'm like, okay, you're stressing me. Are you giving me money to invest in this business or not? This one you're asking me how much, how much. I already told you that this is the kind of money I will return and the interest that will come with it and all of that. And my friend just laughed out that day and like, this baby never ready. Like, if you actually walk up to an organization that is really ready to invest in your business and they actually ask you this question, like, is this going to be your response and all of that? So it is very, very important to have a financial structure, because if you don't have if you run a business, you don't have any history as regards your invoicing to customers, you don't have any clarity on your inventory, your stock value, or you don't even know what your profit margin is, and then you walk up to any company to invest in your business, or even your close friends, they'll just look at you clueless, like, does this person really know what he or she is doing? So over the years, I've understood that a very strong financial structure actually builds your credibility, and it shows not just how passionate you are about your business, but it shows more how prepared you are, come rain, come shine. And if you are still a small business owner, you know, and you actually have a good bookkeeping record, even if it's just like Zuma said, even if it's just in your journal, at least you bring out your journal to talk to someone about, this is what I've done so far. It just makes you look serious. Like, it makes people have a good impression about the fact that you are doing very well. Just like when Toby started, it got to a point where our family actually saw that she's growing and she's doing well for her business. That was how they were able to come out to support and all of that. So, and in the long run, it also helps you to understand your numbers, your stock, your pricing, and everything. And it gives you an edge to plan properly, for the next phase of growth in your business. So, in a nutshell, having a good financial structure is 100% important for every business owner. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Seunfunmi. So in summary, it's very, very important. Bookkeeping is it's a very important financial structure for your business, because it's what will give you the ability to grow as a business. It's also what will attract investment into your business, because just like Seunfunmi pointed out, it's what will give you an edge by the time you are doing a lot of record keeping and you know all these things in details. Um, so Anointing, over to you. So let's talk about pricing and cost tracking, because for every small business or for every business in particular, there is a point where you would have to you'd have to um go over this, which is pricing and cost tracking. So how do you manage costs and pricing in your fashion business, especially to stay profitable without losing customers? How do you manage cost and pricing?
Okay, thank you very much. So I would say first off that with my business, I've in a way, not in a way, I've actually built a community myself. And then if it depends on how people are running their businesses. If you run your business, say I just want to post and take orders, you communicating price difference might be a struggle for anybody to understand. Now, for me, I would say relatively it is easy. I started off, I am still a very much affordable clothing brand, and I started off that way. Over time, times change. I hear people say things like, oh, Nigeria is hard, people would understand. Yes, they know that times are hard, but then there is a reason why you don't want them to walk into the market, but rather come to you, even when times are hard and your price is expensive, which should be effectively communicated. Now, first off, how do I even know that I am supposed to increase my price? Now, it comes from, we've kind of like been saying the same thing, but it shows how very important it is. It comes from detailing the littlest things. There was a time last year that I spent 450,000 on transportation for my business. It did not make sense to me, but I didn't even know because it was 10K Uber here, 10K Uber there, 20K here, truck, and all of those kind of things. And it summed up to 450,000. It was insanely much. And I knew that I can't continue going like this, which means transportation was already taking a toll on my business. Now, after aside that, I pointed out, I noted that out. And then because I was always keeping track of whatever it is, when I see that there is a price shift, I know, okay, can we still manage this as a brand, or can we decide that, oh, this is not manageable, and then we want to like scale. Now, I would not just say, oh, I want to like change my price immediately. I'm a very patient business owner. From the very moment that I have seen a pattern that, oh, the price of this thing might increase, the price of this thing might change. From the time that I'm already hearing the hint of fuel scarcity, I am subtly hinting it to my audience. I'm subtly using it as a strategy to scale and sell. I'm subtly hinting it in FOMO, like the fear of missing out. That is like a solid marketing strategy that I would say that I would always use, and it's trusted. Now, I would subtly hint those things that, you know what, prices might change, prices would change, because you can see things like this. Now, I'm not telling them that it is changing now, but it is. I am having that conversation over time. Now, this conversation tends to build up. When it happens, they already know, like, oh, you know what, you've actually like really tried. It's still affordable. We know that, oh, the other day you spent so amount. Maybe even if I don't even like put so much details to like my community, but they just know the behind the scenes to some extent of my business. I carry them along, and to that extent, they know that okay, I am only trying to like give them the best. Now, I would always communicate effectively to make you understand that regardless of anything that I'm doing, I would not want to settle for less when it comes to offering you the best. That means if I have to slightly increase the price to um give you the standard that you want, then I would give you. But for what is what, I would recommend that you still stay with me. And to be honest, over time, I don't think I would say that I have ever lost a customer by me increasing my price. By the special grace of God, I have not, because I tend to like check. I know the customers that are shop for me. If you ask me now who my highest paying customer is, I know her name by the top of my head. I know how many times that she has shopped from my brand. Now, these are people that has transitioned with my brand from when I was selling something for 2K to 3K to 4K to 5K. Now, how do I know these things? It is only because I track these things. How do I know that I have to increase my price? It is only because I have seen that the cost to running my business, the expenses, even when it comes to even staff. Now, many people might trivialize it. For my staff, I review their salaries periodically, because I know that if you want to have a solid powerhouse, it starts from the grassroots, it starts from the very beginning. If you want somebody to work efficiently like you, by the grace of God, I have amazing staff that sort of carry my business like theirs. Maybe because of they are well paid, but also because I would also want to take care of them. And that comes from, oh, these people are working. This person is now paying XYZ amount for transport. You should increase their salary. Now, I'm not a good Samaritan to want to do that from my pocket. I am doing it from Tobicloset pocket. Now, I would say, does Tobicloset have what it takes to increase salary and also maybe get a car this month and also do this month, move to a new space this month? Oh, no, we can't do this, which means we are maybe not growing properly, which means we might have to increase our prices. Okay, we have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to subtly in this to our audience, and before you know, we transition into the new price and everything is going back to normal, and that way we are staying profitable. So I would say communication is very important. Don't treat business like anything that you can just do. It is very important, regardless of anything that you are doing. Communicate effectively. That is actually one of the things that I know that has helped me scale. Many times when people want to like patronize me, they have screenshots, they have things that I've said in the past, maybe as far back as 2022, that they've held on to, and they just feel like that was convincing enough to come back to me. So even if they come back and the price has changed, they would still be able to like resonate with the new price because of I have effectively communicated to them. So I think that's it.
All right. You dropped like a very important tips, important strategies. So communication with your customers and your community. I think you mentioned a very important tip, which is you have a community and then you always engage them. So I feel like that's also a very important strategy or a very important means of um, running a business, having the community of your customers. So on to the next question, which is to you, David. So we we have all been seeing the new tax that have been passed to law take place like to take place from next year, from January 2026. And they've been talk all over like what does it mean? What does the new tax act mean? Um, what does it mean for businesses? What does it mean for salary earners? What does it mean for content creators? In summary, what does the new tax act mean? So my question to you would be just in brief means explain what the new tax act mean and what major things do SMEs need to be aware of and how can they avoid run-ins with tax authorities.
Okay, thank you very much. So, broad-based, there were four acts that were signed into law on the 26th of June. The first one was the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, which basically tells you how the government is going to administer its taxes, who will collect what. There's the Nigerian Revenue Service Act. So right now we have an agency that collects taxes for the federation. That's for the federal government, Federal Inland Revenue Service. That agency is now going to be called the Nigerian Revenue Service. Then you also have the Joint Revenue Board. Um, in that act, there's also a provisions for what we call the tax ombuds, which is basically a body that helps, like the taxpayer advocate. So if you're a small business, you cannot afford a tax consultant, the tax ombud will defend you free of charge in any tax matter. And that has also been added. And then the fourth one is the Nigerian Tax Act, which basically contains all the taxing provisions, who pays what rates, when should you pay, and all that stuff. The key details, because we can't go through all of them. Then I say the first thing is that it is mandatory for you as a small business to register for taxes, get a tax ID, and then quote your tax ID on all your invoices that you're sending out. So there's a penalty in the law that says that if you do business with a company that is not registered for taxes, there's a 5 million naira penalty. Right. So of course, if you don't have a tax ID, people will not want to do business with you because you're like a risk to them. Then there's also the electronic fiscalization system, which has basically kicked off for larger businesses that are doing 5 billion in revenues and above in a year. That says you plug in your accounting software or your invoicing system to the government's portal so that they can see real time all the sales that you're doing on the system. So the law provides for all taxpayers to plug into that system so that there's full visibility by the government. And as I mentioned, the priority for the FIRS right now is to start with large taxpayers that are 5 billion and above. But over time, we expect that to be cascaded to everybody. The NRS would have powers to distrain. So people always ask me, if I don't pay my tax, what can happen to me? So the government has the power to distrain your business, meaning they can close you down, right? They can put a sticker on your building, they can lock it up in chains, and they can also, sweep your funds from your bank accounts. There's also the powers of substitution, meaning if any other person has your money, maybe a customer,
I don't know if it's just me or did David stop talking? Hello, David, are you there?
Yeah, stop talking.
Okay. So probably his network. Let me quickly reach out to him if he's having network issues. And he was beginning to explain some very vital things, vital information
can you hear
about the new
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, David.
Can you
Please,
hear
can
me
hear you
now?
now.
All
Yeah,
right.
loud and clear, David.
So I was saying, yes, okay. So I was talking about I've talked about the fiscalization system. I was talking about the powers the government has to distrain, to shut down your business, or to even sweep your funds from your bank accounts if you don't pay your taxes. They've established a tax liability against you that you have not paid, they can sweep it. And then there's also a provision now that if your business is doing 50 million naira and below, you are exempted from taxes, companies income tax. You're exempted from having to charge VAT, but there are some caveats here and there on the VAT matter. But you're exempted from basically paying taxes if your business does 50 million naira and below. Now, what is instructive for us as business owners? We need to be educated. These short highlights are just, what I call the teaser for you to go and do a deep dive into how the tax act specifically affects you. Let's be educated on what taxes we're supposed to pay when, what deadlines are we supposed to comply with. And then once we do all of that, we should be on the good side of the tax laws. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that. Really, you went into details. That's very, very important. I like the fact that you broke into details like the different acts of tax that was passed, which is like 4 different asked. So thank you so much for that. We are already getting to the hour mark, so this is the last round of questions, so we can wrap this up. Zumah, in your role at Ilorin Innovation Hub, how are you helping business owners or founders adopt better financial systems? And if there are any successful case scenario, please, you can share with us.
Thank you for the question, Victor. Okay, maybe I need to provide more context. The Ilorin Innovation Hub was launched in May, so we haven't gotten to the part yet. But in Bobit Africa, in my role at Bobit Africa, the founders we advise, the founders that we provide support to, we generally emphasize the need for financial literacy, letting them know that the long-term sustainability of their business depends on how much records they're able to keep. And that is usually the basis for investors' decision making. And beyond investors, an efficient financial system also empowers them with real-time data for management decision making. Like someone said earlier, that when she looked at the dashboard of a website, she was able to see everything she has achieved in the year, and she's able to make more informed decision, based on the information she has. We also encourage them to start with the basics, at least track income and expenses. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be just a simple spreadsheet. It could be a journal. Just make sure that what is coming and what is being spent, and also separating your personal expenses from business expenses. Ensure you keep all receipts and invoices. We also educate them on the need for budgeting, understanding what fixed and variable cost means, what one-off and recurring cost means, what percentage of your expenses should go to payroll based on industry. So we just generally try to provide advisory to them on how best to manage their finances and how to ensure they have efficient financial systems in place. We also talk to them about cash flow management, what constitutes profit, because a lot of people believe that as far as they are making money, they are making profit. So we educate them on the difference between cost of goods sold, and profits, gross profit, net profit. And as they grow, we encourage them towards practical tools, and resources like accounting software, expense tracking app, budgeting and forecasting templates that makes the process easier for them. And when they grow to a certain point, we encourage them to engage the services of a professional, because the more you grow, the less equipped you are to manage your finances yourself.
Thank you, Zumah. Okay, I just wanted to confirm if you're done. Thank you for that. So over to the next question, Seunfunmi. For someone running a small business, there's always difference between a small business and probably like a large corporation that would have necessarily like more resources than a small business with limited resources. And for someone just starting out, what practical tips would you recommend for keeping things organized with or without an accountant? So for someone just starting out, what practical tips would you recommend for keeping things organized?
Okay, thank you very much. So, since we are talking about a small business, then as a startup, you don't need to, spend money in hiring an accountant, except of course, maybe you have a sister, cousin, friend who is willing to, hold your hand and guide you through the accounting process. So, whereby you don't have access to that, then there are few practical things that you can do on your own. The first on my list would be to separate your accounts, because there's always this when you put all of your funds in one place, there's tendency to mismanage, and you might not be able to spell out what these funds was meant for, or what you spent these funds on. So as a small business owner, you need to separate your accounts. So have a personal account for your daily spending and also have a different account for your business. Now, I understand that if you need to open a business account, you need some documents like the CAC and all of that. So if you are not ready to have, or let me say, if you don't have the capacity to, do your CAC registration and all of that just yet, then you can as well open another personal savings account. So that makes two. You can open one with bank A and open another one with bank B. So that way you know that your bank A is for your personal use and your bank B is for your business. So that would be the first thing I would advise a small business owner to do. Then the second thing I would advise you to do is make sure to track everything, like track every activity that has to do with your business. You know, you can use Excel sheet. Excel sheet is free. Google Sheet is free. If you don't have access to all these other business app like Zoho Books and the likes, so you can still make use of your Excel or your Google Sheet. So on a daily basis, track your sales record, track your cost price, track your selling price, subtract it to get your profit margin, all of those information, your expenses. Maybe today you went to the market to shop for your product to sell, or maybe you did some deliveries, everything that has to do with the expenses with your business. You need to keep record of all of that. Then another thing I feel you should do is get your receipts and invoices. Ensure that you also keep all your receipts and invoices. There are so many free apps to generate invoices on the App Store or Play Store. You could download one of it. So when a customer makes an order, you can easily create an invoice with those app, send it to the customer. Once the customer makes a payment, give them, generate a receipt from the same app and send it to them as well. So you can either do a digital invoice and receipts, or you get a printer to print out this receipt and invoice booklet for you. You can always write that out, attach it to the package before you send them out for delivery. So it is very, very important to keep all your receipts and invoices, because they serve as your proof of transaction. And all of this helps during review, or when you have a need to apply for support, grants, investors, and all of that. Then another thing I think you should also do is, aside doing all of this, you also need to also set out time on a weekly basis or monthly basis, as you have the time, to review all of your activities that has to do with your business. So even if it's just few minutes, just sit down, review them. What exactly did I sell out? What came in? How many what expenses did I incur? What sales did I make? Sit down and cross check all your inputs throughout the week. This will actually help you to stay on top of things before they pile up, because when sales start coming up, you can easily get overwhelmed, and you won't keep up with all of these activities. So it doesn't matter how small you start. What is important is that you stay organized, and the moment you start putting in these little structures, when you become full blown, it's not going to be difficult for you to keep up and all that. So you just serve as a foundation for a sustainable business. So all of these few points are things I feel a small business owner should be able to do without having spending too much, and at the same time still give you results as to how to manage your bookkeeping for your business. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Seunfunmi. In summary, just start recording, start documenting, start
Yeah, separate your
organizing.
accounts. Yes,
Just start.
there's a lot more you can actually do, but we are just keeping it at small businesses. You could get a website to help you
Mm,
manage your sales, inventory, and all of that. But of course, we are talking about small business owners who might not have the
mm.
funds to, build up a website and all of that. But
Spend
with
extra
just those
cost.
things I mentioned, there are things you can do in the comfort of your home. You don't have to overstress it. And of course, try to read. You can go online to read more on bookkeeping, read more on how to separate your accounts, the difference between your gross and net profits, all of those things. You could ask friends in the field to put you through on how to come up with that Excel sheet that would, help you identify what your expenses are, your profits, your costs, your both your direct and indirect costs, and all of those things. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for
Welcome.
going into details. So questions already dropping in, and just so we can take at least 2 to 3 questions, I'm just going to plead with us to to answer these last questions in probably a minute each. I'm so sorry. So we can take questions. So, Anointing, what advice would you give to, this is the final question. So what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs, that are balancing passion, their creativity, and the financial side of running a business?
Oh, okay. So that's actually very insightful. Balancing passion, you said creativity and financial side. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And one thing I've learned over time is that passion is what gets you started, or what's that thing that fuels you, but structure is what keeps you going. Like the structure you've placed and how they are coming back effectively is what will get you going. And creativity is that thing that will help you stand out. Then discipline will help you last. So while you are building what you love, you must not ignore the numbers. You have to track your sales. You have to watch your spending and be honest about what is working. Protect your creativity, and most importantly, don't burn out trying to be everything. You should not like burn out yourself. Now, this is actually very, very important because a lot of times young entrepreneurs, they tend to put pressure on themselves. People come and say, "Oh, I want to start a business, but I don't know what I want to do." And I would always tell them that I cannot tell you what to sell, because I need you to do something that every day that you wake up, even on those that it doesn't, even on days that it doesn't make sense, you will still see the need to sorry, you still see the need to get going. There are days I wake up and I don't feel like doing anything. I'm very agitated. I'm having a mood swing. But trust me, I'm still scheduling that Instagram post. That is because I've known over time that Tobicloset is that brand I want to see up there. Now, creativity is one thing that I would tell you is the reason why you can actually single my brand out from every other brand. Now, it is, all of these things are very important, and I still would see the need to like stay profitable. So I would just round it up by saying that everything is important, but at the same time you can balance it efficiently and still make profit. Don't outdo yourself. It is not every time that you must change a phone because you're a business owner and you saw somebody's video on TikTok that is trending. It is not the phone, it is the effort they put into making that video. I started off my business with an Android phone, with an iPhone 7 at a time. And if I show you the videos I shot with that phone, you would not believe that I shot it with that phone. So you just have to bring out your creative side. You don't have to do everything that everybody is doing. Your space does not have to be aesthetically pleasing. Please don't carry the money you're supposed to use to invest in your business and buy CEO chair when your business is not even able to pay you CEO salary. So understand that everything is in stages, and by God's grace, you are going to like get there. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Anointing. Thank you. That's also very, very important, because sometimes priorities matters in running a business. That's why there's always like scale of preference. What is the most important for your business or for yourself at the moment, and then execute or spend per your scale of preference. So go with the one that is the most in your scale of preference, and the one that will give you the most results at the moment, and then you can also go for others. That's very, very important. Thank you for sharing that. And the example was funny too. And David, last question for you. I saw a question on the chat box. Somebody T is asking, how do you legally avoid tax? I think we'll come back to that. Um, as a 9 to 5, how do you so my last question for you, David. I think let's talk money mindsets. We've touched on tax, we've touched on the new tax act. So why is it important for small business owners to start seeing bookkeeping not just as a task, but as a tool for building wealth?
Okay, thank you. So I'll keep my answer very, very short so that to be memorable, right? Doing business without records is like playing a football match without a scoreboard. You are playing, but you don't know whether you are winning or you're losing or you're playing a draw, right? So just think about that. You're just busy going up and down every day, but you don't know, am I doing well? Am I doing poorly? And bear in mind, you cannot improve anything that cannot be measured, cannot be improved. So if you do not, take stock of your metrics, you can improve it. You can say, oh, we've done 10 million this month. We were aiming for 15. What should we do differently? Right? As I always say, there's an equation for success, and it helps when you always look at the scoreboard to know whether you need to change something. If you're a coach and you are playing against a team that is defensive, you probably want to go offensive. If you are playing defensive, the scoreboard will show you it's 10 minutes to go 0-0. If I must win the game, I must change something. So sorry to the people that are not football fans, that might not fully get the analogy. But doing business without financial records, financial statements is basically just being busy all the time and you cannot tell whether you're winning or losing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Like you said, you kept it very brief and also impactful. So yeah, we've come to the end of our July Investment Club meeting on SMEs, bookkeeping, and the impact of the new tax act. I wish this session was longer because it's like it's essentially like 2 topics in one or 3 topics in one, but just so we keep to time and not delaying everyone that joined early. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our attendees for joining in early. If you joined and you're still listening, I also appreciate you guys. So we'll be taking questions quickly. So this one won't do past 10 minutes, I promise. I promise, guys. So if you have any, there were a lot of hands I was seeing. So if you have any question, this is the time to raise up your hand. If not, I'll just read some question or suggest or contribution on the chat box until I get one. Okay, please let's keep it to web. So the questions that relate or concern the webinar topic and not product question. So let me grant you access to please 30 seconds to ask your question. So our guests can use like a minute or 2 to answer them, please. 30 seconds, guys. So I've granted you access to speak now. You don't have a name, but you have you don't have a name. I just granted you access to speak. So you can mute your mic and then go for it. Please, 30 seconds. All right. I saw Danny and okay, Danny, I've unmuted your mic. You can ask your question now. 30 seconds, please. So while we are waiting for them, I'm just going to read the question I saw earlier. So
Please,
I
I have
think
a
this is for you.
question.
Okay. Who is that? Okay, AJ. All right, go for it, AJ.
AJ, so it's a question for Zuma. So Zuma talked about the question where she was asked, what role do financial literacy help in securing grants and funding? My question is, for an LLC, if your financials are in place, what other things are there to be able to secure grants and funding?
Hi, Zuma, did you get that or should he come again? Or okay. Probably she dropped off because we're meant to keep this at an hour. But David, you want to go for it? And again, I didn't also hear that very clearly.
Oh,
So please, can you come
okay.
again, JJ?
I will come again. I'll come again. I said
Okay.
for an LLC, how do you secure grants and funding if you already know how to keep your financials in place?
Okay, so I'll answer to the best of my knowledge because I won't say I'm a specialist in raising grants, right? But I think that the most important thing in fundraising process is speaking to somebody who is already interested in what you do. So that way you're not trying to convert somebody. You're speaking to a believer, right? And then the difference between that is that one person already knows, already has interest in your field, and you're just looking for somebody who ticks the boxes. But if you're talking to somebody who is not a believer in code, you then have to school the person on, a lot of things. So I think that it's best to identify those who already align with your visions, already supporting similar causes, and you can then go into that space. But what we've also seen since Trump came in is that the general space for aid has crumbled significantly. And so I think people are now looking more at the commercial enterprises. And so maybe that's what you might want to look at for. Then, say, how do I always tell people the surest form of capital is sales, sales from customers. How do I sell enough of my products that the customers are able to give me enough money to build my structure? And so that's the much that I have on that subject. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David, for that. Since we are still on you, I saw a question in the chat box. Also, somebody, Precious, Precious, Precious is asking, hello, I did like for David to repeat what was the first thing he said about if you can't afford a tax consultant.
Okay, so I said that there's now something called the tax ombuds, right? And the tax ombuds is that body that's going to be dedicated to advocacy and helping SMEs. That's what the body is about.
Okay.
On
All
January
right.
1st, we should expect it to become active. Yeah.
Okay. January next year, 2026.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. So anointing. I saw a question from you in the chat box. Okay. John Amma from the community said, my question is to anointing. Ma, as a fashion designer, how were you able to overcome the stage of low patronage and lack of visibility?
Okay, so this is actually a very interesting one because it was never rosy. And I will tell you that consistency, it will not make sense, but stay consistent. Now, there was a time in my business where I went 3 months without patronage. I mean, 90 or 93 days without patronage. But one thing that I did not do is I never stopped posting about my brand. If you see me posting about my brand, you would think I have a truckload of orders that I've gotten. I would give detailed caption, I would give detailed explanation, and to some extent it worked because I stayed at the top of people's mind. And one of the things that helped me scale was that the rock of my business, I would say, basically is referrals. As at the time people gave me a chance, I took on it, I delivered properly, and they saw the need to refer me. And also it also brings me to say that you have to like be consistent, and you also have to put in the work. Is it very draining? Yes, it is draining. I'm not going to tell you, oh, just keep pushing. If you want to cry, cry. When you finish crying, look for another way to hawk your market on your head. So I will tell you that you can try different options. I was selling online, but I was also going out there to speak to people. I would walk into places boldly with a smile. The worst you can do is say no. The worst you can do is be mean. But a lot of time when you walk up to strangers and you talk politely, just because of the fact that you have that you had the guts to like walk up to them. They are somewhat warm towards you, and then maybe they just like, oh, we just follow your account, and you don't expect like the patronage to come, but eventually it would come. So I'm going to tell you that it is the time and season, but what you do in this time and season of waiting is what matters if you are going to have a bountiful reward at the end of the day. So you just have to sow solid seed. Now also, I know that maybe things may not be rosy, in the sense that you may not even know what you want to be posting, how you want to be doing it, but you can also try to like volunteer and do certain things. If you are selling something that you know somebody need, you can put it out there to that person. It could bring referral and all of those things. So God willing, it definitely will work well for you.
Thank you so much for that. Seunfunmi, do you want to add to that? I don't know if you have any. So the question is like, how do you overcome the stage of low patronage and lack of visibility? I just wanted to ask you if you have any contribution to that. If not, we can just go ahead and wrap.
My brother is everywhere. We just keep showing up. Like consistency is key, and most importantly, you could ask people around you to also, check what you do. Sometimes we always think we have it all figured out, based on how we think and how we see our businesses. But, oftentimes, even people in our corner see far better than we do. Try to network with people in your line of business. I know that a lot of people that does similar business are never friends. It's always from a place of this person wants to steal my ideas and all that. But there's no harm in trying. The worst that can happen is get a no if you try to reach out, right? So but that shouldn't stop you from reaching out, because we keep learning. For me, I try to follow a lot of people in my line of business just to see how they do their things. It doesn't mean that I want to copy. I'm not even the type that copy. I believe in doing my own thing my own way a lot. But we are in the online space. Everybody wants to make sure that their business is doing very well. So, and I don't believe there's anything new per se. It's just someone thinking out of the box and recreating the usual. Do you understand? So you can just do that as well to see where you are messing up and what is causing you to have that low sales and all of that. But most importantly, like I said, don't stop believing in yourself. Be very, very consistent, regardless of sales or no sales. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, all right, all right, all right. We are 23 minutes past the hour mark of 8, of 6 p.m., which is our stop time. So I think there are still a lot of questions, but we have to wrap this up because I told our guest here is meant to last an hour and probably some few minutes to answer questions. So let's respect everyone's time. And so thank you everyone for taking the time to be here this evening. Thank you for listening attentively. Thank you for dropping your contributions, your questions. Thank you for also tuning in early. Really, really appreciated. This topic, I feel like you should should even have like a part two. If you think this topic should have a part two, drop it in the comments. But yeah, because there are a lot of questions and contributions that we cannot just take for this hour. But I'd really like to appreciate our guests, especially thank them for taking the time from their busy schedules to be here with us, and also to all our listeners for also doing the same. Um, so to wrap July Investment Club meeting, the topic is SMEs, bookkeeping, and the impact of the new tax act. And we have talked deeply on how you can grow your business by proper bookkeeping, which is like recording your books, recording your finances, and how much you spend, how much you invest, how much you take out of your business. You have to record everything in order to grow your business, in order to build wealth for your business. And we also touched on the new tax act and the impact of the new tax act. We talked on the different categories of the new tax act and who it affects and who and the different categories, essentially. So this was a very insightful one. I if you think the same too, I think we should do like a feedback kind of thing where how was this webinar for you? Was it insightful? Did you get anything? And if you get anything, it would be nice to drop it in the comments so we can see that. So, yeah, we're like over for 41. Yeah, if you get like 20, that's not a bad thing. So I think that would be all. So this webinar was brought to you by Risevest, and I think at the beginning of this webinar, I already told you who and what Risevest is. Risevest is a digital assets manager that connects you to global investment opportunities. That's real estate, US stocks, fixed income, and the difference in what you get at Risevest is we act as a fund manager. So you don't need to figure out which stocks to buy, what to invest in. We do all those on your behalf. And you get to have like choice of getting decent returns per any asset classes you choose, some up to 25%. So that will be all for today. The purpose of this webinar, we always organize every last Saturday of the month, and the purpose is to help every one of us here to manage, invest, and grow our finances better. And that is why we always try to do this every last Saturday of the month. We talk on trending topics or financial topics that are important to one's finances, like this one. So yeah, that's the purpose of our community. And thank you for joining in. If you also you can also invite your friends so they can also join in so they don't miss our next one if there's going to be any. And like I said, we're going to wrap this up now. And thank you, David. Thank you, Anointing. And thank you, Seunfunmi, for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, that will be all. So my last question was to if you think this was enough for you, and that's fine. If you think there is need for a part two or you'd want more of this, you can also drop it on the comments. And how this webinar went for you, what do you think about it? Yeah, you can just drop it on the chat. And thank you so much. I think that will be all, David and Anointing and everyone. I wish everyone a very restful weekend. Have a very good rest this weekend. And bye, guys.